Pipes need a little bit of work tonight. How are you all? It's so good to see you.
Well, we are almost live, but
Almost.
looks like
You're
we
good.
are popping on.
I didn't wear my pink sweatshirt. Sorry, Holly.
How dare you? Well, Mark's matching me background. We'll have to count that this week.
And just like that, we are live for Triple T number 165. I literally had to look down and validate that because it just didn't make sense in my head. Like, holy cow, are we already at 165? February 25th, 2025, last Monday of February already. Is it just me, or is our days like just
I like them going fast in the winter, but I also live in the very northeast part of the US. So I'm good with winter unless we're gonna get a blizzard. I'm ready for it to go.
you and Mark up in that upper corner of the East Coast? Yeah. hmm Well, for those of you tuning in, my name is TJ Zebel. I like to call myself a professional problem solver, which I always follow up with no, I don't know everything. I just have a unique way of asking questions to help people find the answers that they are looking for, because quite often we have the answers. We just don't know how to ask the questions to get down and figure out where they're hidden. Um, wow, yeah. We are live on YouTube as well, so I get to say, hi, Mom. And for those of you on YouTube, please do me all of the YouTube favors. Click the subscribe button and ring the bell and leave comments. It doesn't cost you anything, but it sure helps me out. And I like reading the comments. I would love to see some more. And if you enjoy this, please, again, click the like button. I'm feeling a little unliked. I know, yes. Wah, wah, wah. Also have a website up, and we are still working on it. I got a feeling we're just going to be working on it and then we'll work on it some more. Yes.
So here's something hysterical. And I feel like those who have had a website will resonate with this. When you're like, oh, I just got to get a website, this first thought is thinking, get the website and then you'll have it. And then for anybody else who has a website, you have it and then you change it like every 2 months or something like that. And you just keep updating it because you just don't like something on it. So it's a never ending process. It's a lot like laundry.
Yes, exactly. And I've had a couple of different websites, one for my photography studio and a couple that I did myself. And now I've been smart enough to hire somebody. That's why this last one looks much better than my other ones. And of course, they say, if you failed it, they will come. Yeah, not so much on the internet anymore. So, and the website, you can go check it out at thetswb.com, the tall, skinny white boy.com. That's what it stands for, the tall, skinny white boy. That is I, and I am he, and I have been he since 89, 88, somewhere in there. It's been a long time. I got that. I was called that quite often in high school and college. So before the intranet and the ultra web and all the above. Yes, Mark.
You say you were doing this before Madonna, so you're a prima donna, as
Hey,
a colleague of ours once says.
I have matched that description a couple of times in my life. Uh, but on there you'll find some of the stuff that I do. I was I sometimes I've been tempted to put on all the things that I do, but who wants to look at a 78-page website? I mean, right, Mom? Uh, but I do have the privilege of helping people with depression, anxiety, phobias, PTSD, grief. I work with athletes from beginner all the way up to the pro level. I offer corporate coaching because I found out that the CEOs and OOs and all of those are humans so far still. And yes, I work with the humans because we're all in this experience together. Let's see, what else? Tie. It is time to introduce the tie of the week. I started this last year, and a lot of people were surprised to find out that I had more ties than there are weeks in the year. But I'm going to start bringing out some of the ones we introduced last year. This is one of my favorites. A little bit of bugs.
I've been getting so many old-fashioned, what I would call it, old-fashioned, Jesus, dear heavens, you hear me? So many cartoon clips of Looney Tunes and Tom and Jerry on my algorithms, and I'm
Oh, yeah.
actually very happy about it. So I keep liking them so that they keep sending them to me.
Yep. And the best part is, and the sad part is, altogether, there are some of them they could not, they would not, they dare not
Do
make
today.
them nowadays.
Yeah,
Luckily, they made them before cancel culture
very much so.
because they're still funny. It's called humor, folks. What else? If you're new to Triple T, the way it works, first hour, I have at least 3 subjects, topics that I do my best to get through. Those of you that have been around a while understand what I mean when I say I try to cover 3 topics. Sometimes I do, sometimes. And even the ones that we don't, that's a good thing because that means we got in some really good conversation about some of the topics. But before we get into that, I always like to start off with anybody got any good stuff they would like to share from the week? Mark.
Well, we had news on Friday that 2 of the 3 areas of concern, the boomers have either shrunk or remained stable. So reason to celebrate. We're on the road to healing, and just got to keep moving forward.
Yep. And for those of you that are tuning in for the first time, Mark is talking about his amazing, beautiful wife, who has been chosen to prove, to be another person to prove that cancer sucks and it can be. So we're looking forward to another success story.
Thanks for your prayers.
Anybody else? Yes, no, maybe so. Nice quiet week. Awesome. Well, then we will jump. Michael will not be joining us tonight. He is on the road to pick up his wife. So I told him I'd give him a shout out and told him that I'd also give him a shout out. You can check out the closure code and lunchmoneyclub.com. You're welcome, brother. Now, on to tonight's topics. Tonight's topics are 4 kings, masculine women, and matched energy. Well, that sounds like a movie title, don't it?
That or a full moon.
Yeah, right. Diving right in. Four kings, and if you've been around Planet TJ for a while, this comes right out of my triple P protocol, the perfect partner protocol for relationships. In reference to, and I use the reference towards deck of cards. And we get so many people that get caught up in their dating and they want to have somebody and oh my goodness, it would just be nice if I could find a person that would pay attention to me. And when I ask them, well, what are you looking for? And they're, well, I'll know when I see it. I'm like, yeah, that's how you ended up with the last how many schmucks in a meat suit. Woo! So the question is, in a deck of cards, how many kings are there? 4. How many queens are there? 4. How many 5s are there? 4. How many 4s are there? 4. The biggest challenge we have with a lot of the ones that are dating is they'll flip a card that's meeting somebody and going on a date or getting to know them or talking to them. And even if the person shows that they're a 6, we'll invest so much time going, oh, but you're a good 6. But you got so much potential. You could be a king. You just got to let me help you. I can change you and you'll be a great project for me. And oh, I can hardly wait until you're a king. No. No, no, no. They're a 6. For you. They're somebody else's king or queen. Catch and release. Let them go find their match. And so part of the triple P protocol is I will have each of my clients have 3 different journals. And one of the journal is my person, my king, my queen. I'm not judging. I want you to find your perfect person. That's why it's not, or your perfect partner. That's why it's not the perfect person protocol, it's the perfect partner protocol. And I have them write down every single detail they can come up with, good and bad, to describe what their partner is. And it's always cute to watch them when I first bring this concept. Oh, I've done this before. And I'm like, okay, how tall is your partner? Well, they're 5'7" to 6'1". I'm like, no. How tall are they? Well, you mean like exact? I went, yes, exact. 6 foot. Like, okay, they're 6 foot tall. Write that down. But what if I meet somebody and that I really like them and they're like 5'10"? Do they match all the rest of the stuff? Enough? You'll know. But if you were giving carte blanche to order any vehicle that you want, the only thing is, it's the last one you get. You can order any vehicle, any color, any accessory, every down to the very. You can order tan leather seats with indigo blue inset diamonds if that's what you want, if that's what it is. But too many are like, I don't care. I'll know when I see it. Oh, good. You get a 30-year-old lime green Geo Metro with orange interior. No. I'm like, well, you said whatever. Lenora.
So I found this to be an amazing insight, and I don't know why I didn't think of it, especially for those who love to help other people. Like, let's say you're tutoring a child, or or some of us are in change work specialty, and you have a client, and you meet your client, and you look at your client, and you go, or you look at the person that you're with, and you're like, I see you, I got you, it's good, and you meet them where they're at. You're not looking at them going, why aren't you smarter? Why aren't you doing this? Why can't you solve the math problem? Or why aren't you doing this? You're not sitting there criticizing them or thinking, how can I change them? You're meeting them where they're at, as in you accept them as they are. And if they're asking you for help, that's one thing. But especially when we're in relationships, or we're starting relationships, or we're looking at relationships, this is massive insight to me. I cannot change certain relationships. I can't change certain people because they don't want to change. So why is it my business to change them? And I simply need to meet them where they're at, where they are. It's where that person is. And if they're not at a level that is important to me, that's okay. They're still where they are, and they're on their journey. They're on their path. So rather than me looking at it going, why can't I change you? Why can't I do this? You didn't ask me to change. You didn't ask for my help. So I need to let go of that expectation and recognize that you're not a client, or you're not a child that I'm tutoring, or something like that. And I get to just accept you for where you are, and I meet you where you're at. And that has massively changed a number of my relationships over the last 2 weeks when I finally got that download.
Yes, very much so. And I'm glad you pointed that out, because yes, this protocol is applicable in many different arenas. But what I've done with it in tonight's topic, four kings, it can be four kings, four queens. But we're going to take it a step further. Some of the other questions that I ask for them to think about: where do they shop for groceries? Is it Walmart Superstore? Is it a farmer's market? Is it Trader Joe's? Is it Sprouts? Is it where? What kind of car do they drive? And I've had people look at me like, why do I care? Well, do they drive a Yugo? Do they drive a jacked up 4x4 male part extension with loud exhaust and big wheels? Do they drive a Mercedes Benz? And it's amazing when I start pushing for the questions, for the answers, they pop up. They pop up, and I'll be like, okay, so what kind of vehicle? Oh, it's a Mercedes. What color Mercedes? Well, I don't know. First impression. Silver. Cool. Silver Mercedes. Does it what is it? 2-door or 4-door? 4-door. What color interior? Tan. Okay. Sunroof or no sunroof? And pretty soon, once they get into the flow, I can keep asking the questions, and the answers start coming faster and faster, because they're not worrying about if the answer's right or not. It's the first impression. Mark.
I don't know if I'm repeating myself. Could be an Alzheimer's moment, but I remember a story about Tony Robbins traveling from Vladivostok to Moscow on a train. He couldn't read Russian. So I brought a couple of books, but he brought two single subject notebooks. And he described in one of them his perfect partner, where she was born, where she grew up, um, described her from top of her head down to her toes, basically, he filled the book with that perfect partner, and where she went to school, where she went to college, what she studied, and then he went and found her and married her.
Yeah.
You know?
You know who else did that? Darren Hardy, the guy from Success Magazine. And I'll tell the rest of the story right after Lenora. What? No. He did exactly what you just talked about, Mark. And the part that I think is so amazing that I have my clients do, when he got the list so extensive that he couldn't think of one more thing, he then looked at the list and looked in the mirror and said, what can I change about myself so that I'm the person this person would be looking for? That's when he met her. And it's funny because I'll get, at first, I can have anything I want, anything. Okay, I want a multimillionaire mogul that has a yacht and everything, and I'm like, awesome, completely awesome. So what is it about you that he's attracted to, and what could you change to make sure that you're the one? And they're like, well, I said, now don't take this wrong. You can have that person. But as soon as I asked you, the energy you gave off was quickly, I'm not a person who deserves that kind of person. And I went, then when you find that person, you'll self-sabotage it because you won't feel worthy of having that person. Lenora.
Oh my God, so many good pieces in here. So earlier this week, I met with a marketer, and this person specializes in, oh, I can say his name because his company's out there, so it's totally fine. It's his company's name is Growhaus, Grohaus. And this marketer was sharing with me amazing insights as to why my website was not standing out compared to other people. And I had made like 10 pages of what I thought was like really good stuff for my website. And he gets to page two, and he goes, all right, we're scrapping the whole thing. I'm like, okay, there goes a whole bunch of hours worth of time. And he goes, who is your person? Tell me your client. What time do they wake up in the morning? What are they doing 20 minutes into their day? What are they doing the next 20 minutes into their day? When do they get in the car? Where are they headed? What traffic light are they stopping at? What are they doing at the traffic light? Where did they eat lunch? What did they eat for lunch? How much did they pay for lunch? The detail going into this conversation was phenomenal. And even right now, so I'm getting big aha from last time. And this also leads me to this other piece. So if you ever rewind and you go back to like triple T's from episodes 2 through, I don't know, like 120, you will hear me saying how much I don't like future pacing, because how much I don't like thinking about this possible thing, because it would literally get stuck in my chest and it would sound like this. But what if it doesn't happen? Like I could literally tell you that this version of me was going into panic and freaking out because this thing that I want, but what if it doesn't happen? That's all I could hear. And this entire process of whether it was writing in my journal way before I had even understood what journal writing was, circa Lenore was 23 in graduate school or 22, whatever it was. And that was the distinct difference that I could never figure out about how to get back to it until literally just at 7:24 my time, and it's now 7:25. The difference is that I could see it as in, yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, nope, move that, move that, move that. And it was such a connected experience, which I felt differently in my body versus this version of me that goes, but what if it doesn't happen? And just saying, what does it look like? Just tell me about the picture. Just shut up and chill out and tell me about this picture that you're getting and be okay with it. That's the difference. And that discord that we feel of, but what if it doesn't happen, is a blazing sign on the dashboard that says, hey, something's wrong here. You're out of alignment. It doesn't feel good, or a part of you doesn't feel safe to do this right now. You need to deal with that before you go to this.
Mhm.
My thoughts.
Absolutely.
Thank
And
you for
that's
being
why-
a part of my aha.
That's why I
everybody.
say this protocol I designed for dating, but it crosses over into so many different avenues. Holly.
Oh, just something, this whole conversation, but especially something Lenora said. I just had it, this flash in my mind. It was kind of like Lillian, for those who don't know, Lillian Pearl Bridges. It was like I heard her saying, the way through is through the styrofoam brick wall, which I think we've talked about before. Like, I've known this was there, but this is the first time I think it clicked like this for me, that often that brick wall that you're afraid of, that's going to stop you from getting through to get to what you want, when you walk up to it and you punch it, it turns out it's made of styrofoam and it was just an illusion. But I just had this thought that anytime we're going for our king, anytime we're going for, because I think everything we're talking about is basically any manifestation principle. It's your person, but it's also anything else you might be manifesting. Um, we settle for less because we're afraid we can't get more, like whatever it may be. And I was just kind of thinking, you were talking about it getting stuck in your body. And I was thinking, the energy moving through that part of your body, what does that part of your body represent? And it's kind of that breaking through and establishing new patterns. And that whenever you're doing something new, you almost always have that styrofoam brick wall that everything in your life, I've just watched it too many times where somebody will start practicing a new principle. And it might be, for instance, there's a principle that if you periodically take time off to just, ground and get to know yourself, and, that you'll actually do better and you'll have more time. But a lot of people don't realize that. And so, but the interesting thing I've noticed is the first time somebody tries that, their life seems to fall apart. But if you keep going, your life comes back together, and then all of a sudden you have all this more time. And it's the universe testing you, saying, hey, are you going to hold on to your previous beliefs? I'm going to give you some evidence those previous beliefs are true, even though they're not. Are you willing to push through and keep going? Or are you going to see that as your first indication that everything's, oh, no, I'm not going to change anything. I'm not going to establish, it's that is you establishing a new path, a new reality for yourself. And you have to shatter the old one in order to create the new one.
Oh my God. So Holly, the other day, sorry, I'm raising my hand. Quick thing. So this, Holly, okay, I can make a sentence. I swear to God, guys. Styrofoam walls and that discord of one, and that discomfort, when you're sitting in that discomfort and you're feeling that emotional stretch of, this is what I'm looking for, this is where I am, and literally feeling that emotional response is called integration. That is the fancy word for it. But also, Holly, that's breaking the styrofoam walls.
And why am I grinning so much? Because this is all part of that process. And I know that you guys have seen this, what I'm about to say. I have all of my triple P clients put down that they are not going to be in a committed relationship for 1 year. And I always get the pushback, oh my God, I can't do that. find somebody and you're telling me I gotta wait another year. And I'm like, easy, time's gonna pass anyway. Do you want the right one or do you want the next one? But what happens when they're going through this process, just like with other processes, they will get through a styrofoam wall and all of a sudden, oh my gosh, I met the perfect one. 5 weeks into it. I'm like, no, you didn't. It's part of the process, but I don't give them grief about it because what I've found is that it's part of the learning process because they're learning to test and now they have their journal and they're doing what I call R&D, research and development, but in Planet TJ, R&D is they are researching humans so they can develop themselves for the perfect partner that will eventually show up. And usually, I hate to say it, but they'll go through, on average, 3 perfect partners in a year. The first year, they will just meet somebody that's just the best one. Dot dot dot. Yet. And then when they realize that they met they their last the person that they last dated before they started Triple P was a 6, and then they found the perfect one and realized they're an 8, and then the next one is even better, they're a 9. And the reason tonight's topic is called 4 Kings or 4 Queens, either or. Who knows what the 4 Kings or 4 Queens are? Anybody know? Anybody been around cards long enough they can tell me? Eh?
Diamonds, hearts, spades, and
Clubs.
clovers. Clubs, thank you.
Yes. I took the concept one step further. If you're looking for a king, which one of the 4? Are you looking for the King of Hearts? What does that mean to you, the King of Hearts? And I love asking my clients, what do the 4 suits mean to you when they're the king or the queen? Now, not to put anybody on the spot, but I'm gonna. Mike, could I ask you a quick question?
Sure.
What would the hearts mean to you? What kind of personality, when you think of hearts, diamonds, uh, clubs, spades, what would the hearts personality be like?
For me, hearts would be um, closeness, intimate, the emotional connection
Perfect.
of the relationship.
Yeah. What would the diamonds be?
Diamonds would balance between money, of course, or the glamour or the first look of uh, woman.
So more of a flashy partner.
Yeah, more exterior, more of the
Yeah.
seeing the woman at the top of the stairs and just like
And now the spades.
This gets a little more difficult, doesn't it? So spades, I think um that one I think more of work
Yeah.
of like in the grunt, in the day to day, long term average.
And finally, clubs.
Clubs would be kind of bad options. The clubs would be the the fight that they bring
Yes.
for the relationship.
It's amazing when I ask this, your answers are in line with the majority. And so I ask them, which queen or king would you pick? Which one is yours? And they're like, wow. I said, yes, because they're all four different energies. One of the
But there
funniest,
realistically, there
go
should
ahead.
be a mix of all of them because each one of them has its own category.
Yep,
And so the gentle mix of all of those and the weakness of all of those can show issues in the future relationship.
exactly. We're all of us are all four. It's what do you want to be the prominent day to day suit? And so that's where when I brought that up, they're taking it even a step further. And like Lenora pointed out for the website design, kind of like dating. Going up and public speaking, kind of like dating. Writing a book, kind of like dating. Who is your person? If you try and write a book for everybody, you're probably not going to appeal to many people. If you write it for one specific person, there will be enough people that identify with something of that person to find it interesting. If I'm going to go up and speak in front of a crowd, yeah, I want the time to find out who's in the crowd. What do they want to hear? What are the topics and what is the angle of topics? Who are what's the majority of the people sitting there so that I can talk to that person. And four kings, four queens, what's the majority in there and who am I most wanting to align with my product? In dating, what's your product? Whoa. But it's not just you, is it? It's the car you drive, it's where you work, it's where you shop for groceries, it's what you do for fun, it's what your hobbies are, what are your interests. That's why I make my clients dig so deep, because as they dig deep into what they're looking for, the mirror they're standing in front of gets clearer. Who am I? Why is this important to me? What areas can I improve in? What are some of my limiting beliefs? I know. How do I know? Been through it. back in the day, had a Ferrari that was interested in me. And I did not see myself as a Ferrari owner. But as with any guy, I was more than happy to take it for a test drive. Because I knew there was no way on this green earth that I could afford the payments, the maintenance, the insurance. But if somebody came up and said, I would like you to take my Ferrari for a test drive, I would be, yes, I will treat it kindly. Until I find a 68 Camaro with a big block that I can work on, that I think that I probably deserve. It's probably primer gray and just needs a little touching. It's a little bit of a project. I didn't realize that I could actually afford a finished Ferrari until I was informed that that Ferrari was about to go out and buy a wedding ring and ask me to marry her whilst we were both in a relationship. Limiting beliefs, had them here too. So that's why this journal is a good exercise for anybody, because it helps you take a closer look in the mirror to see what might be holding you back. Lenora.
Something that was very helpful to me was, if, for lack of better words, we are creators of our experience to the ability that we have, and there's something that we're wanting, we need to continuously step into the timeline that which we're wanting. But what if that timeline is calling you?
Mm-hmm.
What if that version or that person that you're seeing is you, or you with that person in a future memory? And that version of you is constantly calling you toward it, rather than thinking, what if this doesn't happen going forward? Because that can feel really uncertain. But if you think, oh, that's me, that's that version of me calling me. Because we've all had experiences where we're like, oh my gosh, deja vu, or yeah, was I here before, or something like that. And that familiarity component. So if you can put yourself at that end and let yourself from there call you and write it down, that might give you a different perspective, a different shift.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because again, when I start asking for details, people are usually very slow to get started on the details. And the more details they pull up, the easier the details come. Because, like you described, are they getting in touch with that future? And all of a sudden, the answers just start flowing in. And as usual, that burned up a quick part of the first hour. Any ahas, epiphanies, questions, or can we save those for the second hour so you guys got some questions right out the gate? Hint, hint. Move into the second topic, masculine women. And no, I'm not talking about the stuff that we've gone through the last couple of years in sports. As you guys know, a lot of my topics come from working with clients. And this one, of course, is another one. And it goes in the understanding that all of us have a combination of masculine and feminine energy in us. It's what is the predominant. What energy do we live in the most? And you ladies have been through I am so sorry for you.
That's so funny because I think that about men.
Yes, but it started with you ladies that had to work so hard to be heard. And then all of a sudden, we can do everything guys can do, and now we can do more than guys can do, and masculine energy in men sucks, and now we've got beta boys running around, and we've got
A lot.
yes, yes, and some of you ladies go through such a swing in trying to go through life. One of my clients, and I I told her I would be talking about this a little bit. I'm still going to leave it specifically vague, but was pretty masculine growing up, very feminine, but masculine, tough energy because of the area she grew up in. And then met an amazing man who was very secure in his masculine energy, very protective, and allowed her to finally be safe in her feminine energy. They had 2 kids, everything's going fine. He gets sick, ends up in a wheelchair, and eventually passes away. And she went from baseline masculine in school, got to live nice in her feminine. And as her husband's health declined, she had to become more and more masculine to take care of him and her 2 boys. He dies. Now she's got to be both, but masculine to keep the bills paid and everything. She's very smart, did very well. Meets the new hubster who very narcissistic and controlling, which forced her into even stronger masculine energy to protect herself and her boys. And they have 3 more kids. And she realized that the entire time she was in full masculine energy, even while having children. Finally couldn't take it anymore. They divorce. And she had so much anger, masculine energy built up. She was angry about everything. And it pushed her kids away. And we started working together, and one of the things that helped is I got her to name her masculine energy. And it's one of the protocols that I do with my clients is get them to name their main controlling personas, personalities, energies, whatever you want in there. Her masculine energy, if you've ever watched the movie Godfather, Connie Corleone. And if you know anything about the Godfather, Connie Corleone was a rough and tough, masculine, good-looking lady that would have no problem making sure that you and your family disappeared from the face of the earth if you crossed her. That was her masculine. And the shift has been very, very amazing to see the transformation. Even her kids are still hesitant because they're like, okay, we really like this, Mom. We're just waiting for the shoe to drop. Well, now she's been in it long enough that she swung the pendulum a little too far for a little bit. And in dating through the Triple P protocol, of course, lesson after lesson after lesson. But what she found out was it's okay to let the masculine energy have permission to come out when it's needed. As long as it doesn't feel like it's shamed, suppressed, not allowed to come out, it has no problem sitting around enjoying life. Same with the feminine energy. Guys, we got to have some feminine energy, and that's part of why I asked about the 4 kings or 4 queens. One of my clients, when we were discussing energy, said she didn't want her man to have any feminine energy, full masculine. And I went, that's a slippery, dangerous slope. As men, it's good for us to be in our masculine energy, but have the feminine energy on tap to have the the word just, but to be able to understand people's feelings.
Empathy.
Empathy, thank you. Yes. the both standard empathy and protective empathy. Now, am I saying that empathy is all feminine energy? No, but I would tend to think that the vast majority of quality empathy is a feminine trait. And it goes right in line with the saying of it's better to be a warrior in a garden than it is to be a gardener in a war. You can be at rest in the garden with your masculine energy and have the ability to stand up for yourself, to fight for safety, to protect your person. Ladies, if you are in the presence of true masculine energy with underlying feminine energy available, what does that do for your ability to feel safe in your feminine energy? That's what I'm talking about. And a lot of guys want their woman to be feminine, but not so much that when the feces hits the rotating oscillator that they're just like, oh my God, what do we do? No, babe, rock and roll, we're out of here. And so it's that balance, and that's another one that I have my clients put in their journal. When you are in their presence, what does that do for your energy? And because I've got 6 minutes left, I'm going to segue right into matched energy. And this is from another client of mine. And it's understanding, especially when you've built that journal, when you meet somebody that has that energy, that even if they're with somebody else and the two of you recognize that energy isn't so much that, oh, I'm with the wrong person. It's just that synchronicity gift where you meet them and you're just, it feels like like you've known them for a million years. You can talk, the time just, and it doesn't take away from your partner. But in all the years that I was involved with weddings, I got to see a couple of wedding partners that happened. That energy just, and watching them, I knew that they were going to, if they lived long enough, they could celebrate their 90th wedding anniversary. I'd put money on it. It was just there. And I've seen the contrast. I had couples come in for me to do their engagement photos, and I'm like, after being around them a little bit, I'm like, I don't think you need me as a photographer. I think Elvis Chapel of Lights in Vegas would probably be sufficient, and you guys can spend a week in Vegas, and Divorces R Us are on the other end of the block, and would save everybody a whole lot of money. I had a couple of weddings that didn't last long enough to come get the photo album. And one of them, no, both of them, I knew. The funniest one was Bridezilla and Momzilla drug the hubby to design the wedding album. So Debbie, my partner, is sitting at the computer. Bridezilla, Mamazilla sitting right here. Groom is sitting behind Bridezilla. I'm standing behind the groom. And Debbie gets started and she goes, da, 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 da. She's gone through a couple of them, and then she gets to one and she goes, now do you like this picture or this picture? And the groom goes, actually, I like the other one. And the bride went, you didn't even want to be here, so you just relax. We got this. And I went, whoo. Tapped him on the shoulder, and he looked up at me, and I went, and we went out for a little walk and had a little chat. And yeah, so I've seen quite a spectrum of relationships and energies. And it's why I'm so adamant about Triple P protocol. And taking the time to identify your values and criteria, getting in touch with that future relationship, and being able to take this protocol and apply it, like I say, to as many other things as possible, to who is your perfect client, Who am I writing this book for? Who am I designing this website for? Who am I designing this training for? Who am I da 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 da. You can see how deep and wide this can be. Any questions, ahas, epiphanies in the last we're done with my hour? Lenora.
Oh, I could talk for hours about masculine and feminine.
Good, because we got an hour coming up. Anybody else got anything they'd like to add before we switch gears? Come out of trance. Whee! Well, hopefully this wasn't too heavy. I got you guys all quiet now and thinking mode. We are now into the second hour. For those of you that are watching live on YouTube or watching the recording, the way it works now is it's open mic, open platform. Anybody on the call can ask a question, bring up a topic, and I allow the people on the call to answer first because I like to learn as well. And if there's anything else I think I can add to it, that's when I add my 2 centavos. And so those of you that are watching on YouTube or watching the recording, please join us. It's free. So who's got Elijah added in here, principle number 7, the principle of gender, which states that everything has a masculine and feminine aspect, and these principles manifest on all planes of existence. Yes, exactly. And it's understanding the role, the ratio for the situation. So, who's going to start us off with a question or a topic for hour number 2?
I definitely would like to pop in about the masculine and the feminine component. And I don't know if the lovely Holly would agree or the lovely Guada. I do think that, and I can't say it's one for the other. I think women have a difficult time and men have a difficult time. And I think the culture caters a lot to women and minority, but my heart breaks for men because they're expected to be just like we're expected to be. But there's something that I feel is much more disconnected for men, as in they're not necessarily encouraged the way a woman is encouraged. At least I think so. I know, I was raised to say, you could be whatever you want to be. And I was also raised with the everybody will come before you. What you want will come last, and you'll have to figure it out. And so for me, I was very much right into the masculine version of my feminine self, but I was also very, very, very insecure. As in, when I would share things with people, especially because where I grew up in the Northeast, it was very normal for people to laugh at you when you were saying something. And that was something that completely derailed me constantly because when I would share things, so for example, when I started to reach out to coaches, I was absolutely terrified that they were going to make fun of me, that they were going to laugh at me, that they were going to tell me that I was stupid, so much that it wasn't even Lenora thinks this. It was literally I would hear them, they would say something and I would say, "Well, why are you laughing at that?" And they're like, "I'm not laughing at you." And they had to constantly reframe it. It was such a battle because I was already on the defense. I was already trying to stick up for myself and I was paired with wild insecurity. So there was definitely a lot going on. And I don't think I knew I was in my masculine until I realized and started to really understand what feminine was. As I say this with my very $2.99 minute voice.
And thank you for that transparency and sharing that. And Mike also put in a comment that we are treated as more disposable.
I can
Anybody?
understand that.
That's
Thanks,
Elijah.
Elijah.
Uh-huh. Anybody got anything they want to add to that or any questions to ask Holly?
I've got a number of thoughts that are coming into my head. Now I mean, I could get canceled for even just this answer here. We'll see how far it goes. But I think one of the problems that we have as a society is, first of all, we confuse the concepts of masculine and feminine with male and female, and they're not the same as each other. And one of the things we have to recognize is, I think at a certain point, first of all, every man has masculine and feminine traits. Every woman has masculine and feminine traits. They have a different mix. Masculinity, there's toxic masculinity. There's respectable, whatever you want to call it, savior, the amazing, true, pure masculinity. There's toxic femininity. There's amazing, true femininity. And we all have a mixture of all four. And, a lot of life is about purifying our masculinity and our femininity and also getting that balance. And, it might be a balance within us. It might be balance in our relationships, whatever it may be. I think part of the problem is when you think that male and masculine are the same, there was a time where people said male and masculine are the same and males are better than females. And so all masculinity is good. And then I think that we're now in the phase of life where we're seeing the response to that, the rebuttal, where the pendulum is swung to the other side of, no, masculinity is not all good. It's that now we're going to change it to all bad. And if masculinity is bad, all males are bad. And by the way, if you are a male, you better not be shown any, you better not be shown any feminine, or you maybe better be shown all feminine because you don't want to be masculine, you don't want to be bad. And, it's recognizing, no, it's about balance. You don't want to get all of one, all of the other. And, even if you're a masculine woman, at some point, you're going to need to embrace your feminine side. And if you're a feminine woman, at some point, you're going to need to embrace your masculine side. And same for men. If you're a masculine man, at some point, you're going to learn to embrace your feminine side. And if you're a feminine man, at some point, you're going to learn to embrace your masculine side. You're not a whole person until you embrace both sides and you grow both sides. One might grow faster than the other. That's okay. And you might need to purify one more than the other. That's okay too. But yeah, anyway, I know I've just been going on and on, but yes, masculine is not the same as male and feminine is not the same as female. And that's okay.
Beautifully shared, Holly.
Anybody got anything they want to add to that? And I think part of, well, go ahead.
I was just going to say, were you going to say something, TJ? But you're going.
Well, I was going to point out one of the things that Lenora touched on is the environment we grew up in. Especially as kids, where our programming is so vulnerable between the conception up to ages 5 to 7, and depending on who we grew up with and the values and criteria put on us and our friends who may have been friends, maybe not. I grew up in a tiny little village in Minnesota, Dan, where boys were expected to act as boys, girls were expected to act as girls. The boys had no problem pointing out you were a sissy boy if you cried or did something like that. And the girls would get frustrated because they wanted to do some of the stuff the boys did. No, you're a girl. You don't get to do these things. You got to go do girl things. Go play with your dolls and stuff. And then the pendulum got swung so far to the other side. And I think we're trying to figure out where is a good area, a good viable area for existence to rest at. Now, does that mean that all the men in the area that I grew up were manly men? Beer? No, we had a couple of guys that were definitely deeper in their feminine, and we also had some ladies that they could outdo a lot of guys because of the environment they had to grow up in. To the point where some of them, if they ever put on a dress, everybody in the community be like, "Did you see that she wore a dress?" Yeah, she is a female. Oh yeah, Mark.
A question I sometimes ask, is there a father's heart? We know there's a mother's heart, but is there a father's heart? And you know, I had this young lad, and they were talking about, again, the power of tears. And I said, he goes, yeah, he goes, I said, it's okay to cry. He goes, when's the last time you cried? I said, well, what time is it? Sometimes I just need a good cry.
Yep.
Usually I put on Ryan's song or The Natural, and I leak, you know. um, I believe there is strength, and if you want to be strong and masculine, you're like a big strong rock. But if then something will come along and split the rock in two and reveal the spring underneath, and the tears will gush forth, and that's healthy.
Luckily, I had a teacher, I think it was seventh grade, that I think, if I remember right, he caught a couple of boys teasing another boy because he was crying about something. And so the teacher was like, just so you know, men are allowed to cry and they should cry. And of course, the boys that were teasing everybody are like, well, my dad never cries. That you've seen. He said it's okay for guys to say, I love you to another guy. You should tell your dad you love him. It's okay for guys to hug. And of course, that was like, what the what? He said, stop with this thinking that you guys have to be stoic, made of steel and granite all the time, because it will wear you down. And it was that class that I gave myself permission to cry and tell my dad stuff and hug and leak at movies. That stupid Sarah McLachlan uh, ad for pets.
Commercials.
Are you kidding me? Here's my credit card. Just shut it off already. She should be sponsored by clinics and Bounty towels and. Okay, Mark or Lenore, hands are up.
Go ahead, Laura.
You're good. You're good. Go ahead.
You're good.
I used to, and it still breaks my heart that, I hear and with the male clients that I work with, and it's very, very wildly interesting, and it's something that makes my heart so happy, is that I have a number of male clients that I work with, and hearing their experiences of what it felt like growing up and even what it feels like. And especially when it comes to, yes, talking about how you feel. I'm not saying go on a live social media and cry because your Starbucks order didn't come out right. I'm not talking about that. And I think that's where there's that pendulum swing that we see, that extreme. But when you're with certain people, when you're with your tribe, you guys have seen me, yeah, only have to turn off my camera only because I don't know if all of YouTube wants to see me crying. But they're being told how to cry and when to cry and what not to do. I think it is very hurtful, but I love being able to create that space where people feel like it's okay to let it out. It's okay to cry. It's perfectly fine. I'm not pointing a finger. We're having a conversation about it. And quite literally, those styrofoam blocks, Holly, helping people move through those blockades that are holding them back. And it's unfortunate that our culture would have you think like, no, that's not stopping you. It's your willingness to motivate yourself, and you should be awake 28 hours out of the 24-hour day. It's unfortunate that our culture is like that. But I love that we, the people that do change work, are creating those spaces to help people navigate that. And especially to not just help the men navigate that, help them navigate how they're spending time with their children. I have a number of clients that have young kids and they're quite literally saying, I don't want to do what happened there, but I don't know what I need to do or what I'm not doing and what's going on. And helping them create that path forward so that they can then pass along what they want. Because we know more now, which is a good thing, we also get to do better because of that.
Well stated. Thank you. Mark.
Came back to me. Ladies, I'll put it to you. How attractive is a guy who is strong and protective, but also willing to be vulnerable?
I will say very. It's got to be hard for men. I have no doubt to want to have somebody that you can share that space with. And there is something to be said that there is somewhat of a disconnect that if your significant other isn't in the same space of wanting to work on themselves, it's unfortunate because the person that's wanting to work on themselves is in a relationship where somebody who's like, I am who I am, and that's okay. The unfortunate thing is that the person working on themselves has to recognize I have to meet them where they're at. They're not coming to me. I have to continuously meet them and continue to be okay with it and continue to hold space for that person because they're not going to understand the things that I'm thinking about, the things that and going through, literally, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And that's something I definitely share because I think you all say this when you start to work on yourself, the people around you start to change. There you go.
I'm going to tag on that real quick. That's the hard part for some of my clients when they realize that as they change, it's harder for them to be around certain people that they hung out with before they started the change. And they also notice that some of the people that they hung out with start getting on their case and talking down to them and all these things because the people they used to hang out with don't recognize the new person and they don't want to get to know the new person. They want the old person back. And sometimes you have to let them know that person doesn't exist anymore. Same body, different program, not going back. And I have to explain that to them that yes, there will be times where it's going to be rough. You may have to, yes, Mike, the challenges of holding the new frame. And I've been there, done that. When I went to Europe for a year and came back home, it was a challenge for me because I had seen and learned things, and my friends tried to push me back into this tiny little box. And I'm like, I don't fit in that anymore. Not comfortable. Holly.
Was Mark done?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Um, yeah, so this conversation is kind of making me think, for those who know, I'm really into the Kuji whatever. And the first concept in the Kuji is the concept of Rin, which is power. And I've just been thinking about kind of this masculine, there's the yin and the yang, and then yang is more masculine, yin is more, feminine. Um, and kind of what Mark said, especially, just made me think about this idea of, the true masculinity is when somebody is strong enough that they're, willing to protect you, they're able to protect you, like that. And I will definitely say, as we said earlier, in order to be in your feminine energy, you need a masculine energy to keep you safe, to be able to, and when you're in your feminine energy, you could be very creative, but you're very vulnerable as well. And there might be times when the woman is in her masculine energy to allow the man to be in his feminine energy. Like, it doesn't have to always go one way. But anyway, my point is, when with Rin and power, I always say there's a true Rin and a false Rin. And true Rin is, hey, I'm powerful enough that I can survive anything life throws at me. I'm powerful enough that it's the speak softly and carry a big sticks kind of energy. And then you've got, the false Rin, which is the I'm not powerful enough to survive anything life throws at me, so I need to be in control and make sure life doesn't throw anything at me. And it's also the energy of domineering. And so I think that that's a big difference, in the healthy masculine, the beautiful masculine, the masculine that we need on this earth. Of, I'm able to build things, I'm able to protect things. That's a very powerful, useful energy that we need more of, versus the I'm out of control, I'm terrified, and so I need to control everything around me, and I need to domineer and force everybody to do it my way, and never, don't ever get out of your little box, because, that's threatening to me. And that's the toxic masculinity that we hopefully get less of.
And I think that's the energy that a lot of people mistakenly attach to males, not realizing that it's in both male and female, especially those that have been through um, any type of trauma, especially in their early years. And on this one, I'm going to extend it up to like 20. I've seen a number of women that had a real tough time up through even 21, 22, and decided that that will never happen again. I'm going to be so masculine and so protective, and anybody get and not realizing they have now taken their beautiful, amazing feminine energy and put it in a prison. I actually had one client that basically she blamed her feminine energy for getting her into the situation that occurred. And so her masculine energy took over to make sure that she never got that situation never happened to her again. And it took quite a bit of work to allow her to be trusting of her feminine energy enough to let it out. So I'm glad you brought that up, Holly. Anybody else got anything they want to add to that? Bueller? Time for another question or topic? I got you guys all. Mike.
To go off of what Holly said, um, I was wondering if that is, and I think she touched base on that, the insecurities of reacting that way, um, helps them become more comfortable, but also shows the lack of malleability within that individual to be able to adjust and um, accept and um, you know what I mean, right? I mean, um, to be able to adapt um, with individuals as they change and how you should be able to. I'm losing it, sorry, but the inability for them to be able to adapt to other people's changes, I guess. Okay.
Mark.
Yeah, I was, to build off to what, it's kind of been kicking around in the background. They were talking about, was it supportive empathy and, other types, and it leads into my question for the evening. Holly talked about toxic masculinity, which is an extreme. Heard a term this week, and I wanted to throw it out there for people to comment on is there such a thing as toxic empathy? And what do you think about that? Like you said, the pendulum has swung maybe too far. It was, but is there such a, what do people feel about that concept? I heard it mentioned, a couple times this week of toxic empathy. And I wanted to get everybody's input on that.
Great question. Who's got something for Lenore?
I have not heard that phrase, Mark, but I'm going to go with the fact that I think it could absolutely exist. There were, very specifically for me, I would feel a lot of things. So I had to figure out how to control that. Like when I would see things on TV, I wasn't watching them, they were physically happening to me. So I was getting to an extreme where we'll just go with I couldn't watch certain things on TV. And understanding how to relate to that, but also, especially when things are going on with my friends or my family, how I relate to that and being able to have that boundary so that way I quite literally don't take it on as me. But I think you might also be asking something different. So it just feels like I'm not quite answering your question, other than the fact that, yes, I think it could exist.
Holly.
Don't know if you were answering Mark's question, but you were definitely giving me stuff I needed to hear. Thank you, Lenora. There for sure is a thing called toxic empathy. I think we're getting in. So Jordan Peterson talks a lot about it. And also, I mean, you asked previously if there's a such thing as a father's heart, and there definitely is too. He will talk about, and this kind of, so you've toxic empathy is also sometimes called the devouring mother, even though it doesn't have to come from a mother and it doesn't have to be the exact same thing. But basically, toxic empathy happens when you're trying too hard to interfere in somebody else's life and not give them. You're so worried that they might have pain or they might have something bad happen to them that you're basically going to control them and you're not going to let them have growth and you're not going to let them become an independent human being. And I mean, obviously, that often happens with mothers. The mother role. And once again, these are just roles. There could be families where it's reversed, but this is just, the what's the word for archetypical role. So, the fathers, they do protection. So like a father's heart might be a little bit more protective. And that doesn't mean a father can't have a mother's heart and a mother can't have a father's heart too. Just these are archetypes. Whereas a mother's heart might be a little bit more nurturing. A father is supposed to teach, give their kids, he teaches them how to play, for example, especially with sons. I'm going to play with you rough and tumble play so that you can learn that you could do something that's a little bit scary and a little bit rough and survive and have fun, but also so that you can learn that you have power and your power could come out, but there's a limit to where you're hurting other people. And I'm going to teach you how to recognize that. Whereas the mother, she especially deals with, defenseless infants, and a defenseless infant could do no wrong. You can't ever be in a place where you're going to say, I'm not going to change your diaper, you 2-month-old baby, because you were crying too much yesterday. And so, it's a very different kind of energy. Both parents can have both kinds of energy at times. But the problem is if you're taking that you could do no wrong energy that belongs for a 2-month-old infant, and you're sending it towards your 30-year-old son or daughter or whoever who is just playing video games all day long in your basement, and you don't, and they're doing drugs and you're constantly giving them money and bailing them out of jail and all these sorts of things, that can very quickly turn into toxic empathy. But not only can it go from a mother to a child, it also very commonly shows up therapist to patient, or, hypnotist to client, or whatever we want to call it, where instead of when a person comes in and they want to change something, we say, oh, I see what you should be doing. I see who you could become. I see the way you should heal. I, as the therapist or the hypnotist or the life coach or whatever it may be, I am going to tell you what I think you should hear, instead of really, really listening to you and determining what you want to build in your life, determining what you want to work on. Oh, you want to work on your relationship with your brother? I think you should work on your relationship with your spouse. Or I think you should be working on the relationship with your parents, or, whatever it may be. So it definitely shows up in the mother-child relationship, but I think it is, the next most common place is in the helping workplace, where it's like, I care more about you being hurt than I care about me denying you access to grow and become an independent human being.
Great answer.
Truly.
Again, as usual. I'm going to throw something on there, AKA helicopter parents. And in Chinese facial reading, I would tend to say, if you were to look at the upper lip and look for the lines of the over nurturing, be a good clue to see who may be a candidate for toxic empathy. Especially if you see a lot of fear in the chin. Combine those two, and if they got kids, there's a good chance that there was some toxic empathy in there. And another trait that popped up when you were talking about that would be the over worrying parent of toxic empathy, where the worrying almost is so bad that it makes the parent physically ill from toxic empathy. And you have to remind them there is no level of worrying that you can provide that is going to make your child any safer or change their situation. If that were the case, there would be no kids lost, there would be no kids hurt, there would be no kids in trouble, because all mom would have to do is be super worrier. I worry enough, my child will be safe forever. And so you have to care for them, love them, and like the birds, kick them out of the nest and let them learn how to fly on the way down. Anybody got any other stuff they want to add to that? Lenora, you said you wanted to talk about father's heart a little more in depth.
Um, Mark, did you ask, is there such a thing as father's heart?
Microphone.
No,
Me?
I mean, I just,
Oh,
I sometimes pose that, in a session, is there such a thing as a father's heart? Just to see how people react to that idea of, you know, um, that fathers can be nurturers, fathers can be, vulnerable.
okay.
Again, I believe in that concept. I just, but it's it factored in with what everybody else was saying about, uh, what they were saying about, vulnerability and those things we were talking about earlier.
I
So,
love that.
so the question popped up because sometimes I'll ask that, to a client to see how they're
See
going to
what they were
respond.
saying. Okay. I didn't know if you were openly asking that. And yes, I definitely believe that there is such a thing as a father's heart. And now we for sure know that there's such a thing as a father's heart. Yes, I definitely think so. Um, I also find it very interesting. My dad is like, you would look at him and you'd be like, oh, you have daughters. You could just tell right off the bat that daughters hold a special place in his heart and that he was not built for sons, he was built for daughters.
I always think it's fun when you see the super masculine dudes and all of a sudden they got a kid, comes out, it's a daughter, and they're like, um, uh, what am I gonna do with a girl? And then pretty soon they're doing the little tea time with their daughters, and the daughters doing their hair up, and like, yeah, she got you wrapped right around her finger.
My daughter always had a, certain tonality when she wanted something. She was like, Daddy. And I got so well conditioned, I just automatically start reaching for my wallet. And, but then after she got married, she'd come over and she'd be like, Dad, I'm like, wait a minute. You have a husband. Go talk to him now. I've done my time.
Uh-huh. Okay, kids, 23 minis left. Do we have another question, another topic? Mark.
Um, this came up. There was a dating coach on a podcast, and she was talking about a couple of interesting topics. And he was talking about, you have two people meet, and it happens more often than we'd like to admit that one person is more into the other than the others. So that creates a power dynamic where one person is, indifferent about it, but the other person is trying to, because they're into the other partner, they're always trying to make them fall in love with them and, do all kinds of things, because they're so into this other person. And the you know the and it could be either partner, but and she said the ideal is to find that perfect partner protocol where you're both into each other. Okay, where when you find two people that are totally into each other, you have the potential of having a phenomenal relationship. And I just wanted to, throw that out there. It was one of the core concepts of her podcast about dating. And, because you find yourself in the one down position, the other person is not going to, there's nothing you can do to get them to fall in love with you. No efforts, no, you need to be looking for someone who's as much into you as you are into them. I wanted to hear what people would say about that.
Holly.
Oh, jump right in here. So one of the things that I think we talked about this before on a triple T. It's the idea of, do you have a relationship or do you have a fandom? And if you have a fan relationship, basically, you know, it doesn't matter whether you have a fan and you're the object of that or you are the fan. You don't see the other person as a human being. They can walk all over you. You don't care about it. Whereas if you have a relationship, you can say, yeah, this person's awesome, but they're a human being. They have faults. They have flaws. And we're allowed to negotiate in this relationship. Neither one of us is going to walk all over the other person. But the flip side of that is to remember that, because I remember having this conversation with a friend of mine, and she said, he's further ahead in this relationship than me. He's really into me, and I'm, he sees this as going to marriage, and I'm not quite there yet. And the discussion we had, it was still a relationship. It was still a negotiation. They just were not quite in exactly the same spot. And one of the thoughts that came to me when we were having that conversation is, no two people will ever be in exactly the same spot. No two people are going to be exactly the same into each other the same way. Now it might oscillate. Maybe one day, I'll use your stereotypical relationship. Maybe she's more into him than he is into her, and maybe the next day he's more into her than she is into him. That's totally fine. But once again, it's okay if it's, hey, I still see, what the discussion I had with my friend was, if there's no potential for this relationship, it's time to end it. But as long as you believe there's still a chance and you still see value in him, and as long as you're not lying to him about where you are, it's okay that he's a little bit ahead of you in this relationship, as long as you're both at least see the potential of it heading in the same direction. It's okay for you to get to know each other better. It's okay for you to fill him out and see, yes, is this something that I can do? As long as, once again, you're not lying to them. If you already know it shouldn't be and you're just dragging him along because you don't want to be lonely, that's a completely different situation. Also recognizing that, like I said, just because you're behind today, the day may come in the future where you're a little bit ahead of him, and you'll be patient with him as he waits to catch up as well. And that's okay too. But I think the big difference is, are you still in a place where you both see each other as human beings with flaws and good parts? And do you also believe that you're in a place where you're both allowed to negotiate in the relationship and look out for your own needs as well as their needs? Or have you gotten to the place where, one or the other person believes the other person could do no wrong, and negotiation has stopped happening and one person always gets their way? And I think that is a very important thing, that once you get to that place, it's not a relationship anymore, and very dangerous things can happen on both sides.
What happens when you put someone up on a pedestal?
And one thing that I heard a long time ago and still rings true, the person with the least amount of interest is the one in charge. Sad but true. And I've seen it proven way too many times. And when Holly was talking about sometimes one will be more interested in one, then it flips back and forth, that fits right into the metaphor that Lillian Bridges brought up, where we're on the river of life in our own canoe. Even when we get married, we're still in our own canoe. And one person might get over a little farther ahead or a little behind or a little off to the side or whatever. And that's the part that we have to ABT, always be testing to see where we are before things get too far apart to rescue. And there's our beautiful Fran. You wouldn't happen to have a question or a topic for the last 17 minutes, would you, Fran?
I'm sure I'll throw a spanner in the works immediately.
Yeah, I was going to say, hi, welcome. You've been here 30 seconds. What do you got for us?
Well, I'm having a challenge with somebody up in my in the management side of my fire brigade, and we're volunteers, and so I guess it's about chunking up, chunking down, problem solving, and because most issues are started with just different perceptions of the same thing. And, maybe some people have got some wisdom. Usually everybody's pretty much on the same page. It's just that little bit of mismatch that happens. So I guess it's negotiation and problem solving to harmonize different personalities.
Dealing with humans
Has
in their
anybody got
natural
any wisdom?
environment. Who's got an answer for our lovely Fran?
I had shared earlier, Fran, my one of the big ahas of the last 2 weeks was to meet people where they're at. As in when we are working with clients or if we're tutoring a child, we know going into the interaction, they want our help to change. And we can absolutely offer insights and different perspectives. For other people who don't want to change and didn't ask us to help, we have to quite literally meet them where they're at and recognize they are who they are. And even though we might need to be the ones that need to modify and adapt, it might be easier than looking at them going, why aren't you changing? What do you do? Why aren't you getting it together? And that can really be massively helpful in saying, oh, that's right. They have no idea. They are where they are. I can meet them there. I can go to that place.
That's beautiful. At the moment, I don't even want to meet them there.
See? A lot less foxes to give in that case.
Yeah, so there may be a little bit of self-reflection to deal with there, I think.
Yeah, this protocol. Holly.
This is going to be almost identical to what Lenora just said, but one of the things I'm having to learn too. So I have 3 letters that I say to myself a lot: NMP, and it can stand for 2 things: not my place or not my problem. And basically, what it comes down to is if there's an issue between 2 other people, the first question I got to ask myself is it even my place to come in? Or do I have to tell myself, I love both people. I can see they both mean well. They're not on the same page. They're not talking the same language. But you know what? Either based on, my relationship, either based on the hierarchy or based on how well I know these people, it may not even be my place to come in. I may not, all I'm going to do if I go in there and step in there is just make it worse. They are going to have to work it out between the 2 of them. And hopefully, yes, not my monkeys, not my circus. I've heard that one as well. It's, I could love them from afar. But at the same time, if it's not now, the thing is, sometimes it is your place. So you do have to ask the question. For instance, if you're the boss, and even in a volunteer organization, if you're the boss and they're both under you, now it's your place. And also, if they both come to you and say, you know what? We both think the other person has good intentions, but we're having trouble talking and we both like you. Is there any way you can mediate between us? Then you've been invited in. Now, I will also say too, when we're asked to help, I believe the first thing we have to do is we have a duty to create rapport. And also we have a duty. The second duty is to understand the issues, because we might come in prescribing all sorts of things and they might be fighting about something completely different than what we think they're fighting about. Maybe they went out drinking last night and, I don't know, maybe they made out and then one of them didn't call the other and they're fighting about this thing and you have no idea it's really about that other thing. So, even if it isn't your place, the one thing you can do is just, build the best relationship you can with each of them individually and set the example and set the tone. And if you're in rapport with both of them and you have state control and you bring the best version of you, that's the most you could do is, hope that they will follow suit. And then at a certain point, you just have to say their relationship between the 2 of them is their business. And even if one of them ends up leaving, if, whatever it happens, if I step in, I haven't been invited in, it's not my place. All I'm going to do is make it worse, even if I don't seem to think that, even though I wish I could make it better, if that makes sense.
Absolutely good advice. Well, state control is a really good thing. And taking the upset and angry emotion out of negotiating is a great thing as well. So, yeah. And I mean, I have the ultimate ability to actually put somebody between myself and the person that there's been the issue with, if necessary, but it's inefficient. So actually getting to the point where we can communicate, perhaps with modifying how we communicate, And again, like the not my monkeys, not my circus, for me to define my role and relationship with this person more clearly would definitely be helpful. There's a lot of things I can actually pass to other people, which would probably ease the problem. But yeah, a lot of the issues to do with them thinking that they have authority, more authority than they actually do, and throwing that around, and that kind of upsets people.
Holly.
Sorry, just one other thing I'll throw in there. It is always your business if it's your relationship with somebody directly. And I will say, if they're causing you problems, the first question I'd ask is, even though this is my business and I have every right to deal with it, I may not go to them directly. Maybe I need to go to their boss and say, such and such has thrown their weight around. Is there, what can we do? But the other thing I'd say is, before tackling it, know your outcome. Because if you just go and say, oh, I've got this problem, we've talked about before, if you're at the top, you say, okay, well, what have you already tried? So just say, and maybe there's more than one. These are the 5 outcomes I can live with. These are the things that I've tried that are within my power, that are legitimate for me to try, that haven't worked. And I'm going to bring that to their boss to just say, hey, but also look at it and say, is it annoying me because they think they have this power and they're trying to throw it around? Or are they actually causing problems because they're throwing this? Because sometimes people will come in and try to order people around and everybody will just ignore them. And it's annoying, but because they have no power, nothing actually happens from it. There are no real consequences other than everybody's annoyed. So choosing your battles as well. Is this a battle that needs to be chosen? But if it is, I'm going into it, I'm knowing my outcome, and I know who has the responsibility to fix it. And if at the end of the day I have to walk away because that's what I have to do, that's always got to be on the table as well. And if you choose not to walk away, that means you found a resolution you could live with, even if it's not ideal, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And thank you, because that's actually confirmed a lot of what I've already done. That rather than focusing on what's not right, I've been focusing on what do I want? What do I think is an appropriate outcome? It has actually got to a third party mediating. And I do have an alternative that if all else fails, well, I can put somebody else between us. So not a problem. Yeah. Well done. Thank you, Holly. That's great stuff.
I've got a question. This person, this challenge, are they worth knowing?
Our brigade has to deal with them. They are an intermediary for for our relationship with our authority body. And they just think they've got a lot more authority than they actually have. And that I'm not the only person that's been upset by this. So I'm looking at it as an opportunity to actually make some awarenesses to the person who probably doesn't realize the problems that they're causing without making more problems. That's my aim.
Yeah, I was going to say this might be a little wide roundabout tactic, but utilizing something like 36 questions to build a deeper rapport with them, figuring out their values and criteria, and letting them get to know you on a different level, more than just business. And are you familiar when I say 36 questions?
No.
It's on the internet, it's on the phone. You look up, it's actually 36 questions to fall deeper in love. What they are values and criteria. Huh? Uh-oh.
Let's see.
You okay?
Sorry, I just thought I had to get that call. I'll get it later. Yep, that's okay.
Okay. I was making sure you're all right. But it's I like Elijah, an opportunity to use the dark side of covert hypnosis.
Bro, how is it different from what you're saying?
No, you're right. That's why I said it's kind of a roundabout. Um, and when I teach this to my clients and students, I simply tell them, don't try to use all of them. Read through the list and find one or two that really resonates with you and use that, and don't just go up to them, hey, I've got a question for you. It's there are lots of different ways to approach the question, but you can be like, if you're close enough, I gotta share something with you. I heard this couple talking, and they were asking this question. It really kind of just stuck in my head, and the question was, and I'm going to ask you, Fran. Well, no, you've got the phone. If you could, this is one of the questions. If you could sit down for lunch with anybody and ask them questions, anybody, alive or dead, real or fictitious, who would you pick? Who would you sit down to lunch with? And when they give you the answer, wow, it's a great answer. So what's important about, and now you're into values and criteria.
That's great. And yes, you've just reminded me of one of my resources in some time of extreme challenges. I called upon the energy of King Solomon, who's pretty wise dude. And I now, from that point, I've got access to Solomon wisdom just by going into meditation or hypnosis and throwing it over to him. He's pretty good.
Yes, because you can draw people in with vinegar or sugar.
Yeah,
And sometimes,
he'd do either.
yes.
Whatever works.
Anybody
Yeah.
got anybody else got anything they want to add to this? We've got 3 minutes left.
If you ever have difficulty asking a question, like maybe you think the question is a bit too in your face or in their face, a bit too direct, a bit too confrontational, then put it inside a quote. Use a quotes pattern, right? I had this friend and she went to the doctor and he asked her, and now so I can say something incredibly direct to you, but it's not me saying it to you, it's a doctor saying it to my friend. But I could actually say it directly to you, or something like that. So just, you can do, oh, my friend said, that would be one layer. But if you wanted, oh, my friend was out for lunch on the weekend with her colleagues, and one of them said to her, and now you've got, oh, it's like 2 layers of separation, because you're saying something to them which your friend said to you, but she heard it from someone else. And so you've got this extra protection to say something absolutely incredibly direct to someone while making it sound indirect.
I
That's
agree with
fabulous.
everything. I agree with everything that Elijah just said. Sometimes I'll use distancing language. Like if I were to ask you this, what are you asking me? I didn't ask you. I said if I were to ask you this, or a friend of mine always likes to use not for nothing, and then ask the question. Those are some other types of distancing language, but what Elijah said was very valid too. Again, you put layers between you and the question, and then the person can't take umbrage at what you're saying.
Yeah.
One of my strategies has been to actually, when I'm writing down the list of what I want, that I'll actually give it to the mediator, not to the person directly, so that they can filter whatever they feel is appropriate, but still understand what my bottom line is.
Yeah, there are some of the words for this kind of distancing language that Mark is talking about. Words like suppose. If you say to someone, "Oh, suppose for a moment," what does that really mean? It means I'm not actually saying it, but just try it on inside your mind for a minute, right? Or what would it be like? What would it be like if? Because we're not going there, but we're going there, right? And things like that. There are these.
Have you ever
Ross
wondered?
Jeffries used to call them weasel phrases. Yeah, if you look up weasel phrases, you'll probably find a list of them. Yeah.
You could also use the perhaps, because that validates what the other person's position is. And then you say, but perhaps this, perhaps you're right, but perhaps, and then you fill in the blank. But like you said, all kinds of distancing language tips.
That's great. That's really great. Thank you.
And here we are again at the top of the hour. There are so many things I want to say to you guys and share, but thank you is about as basic and broad as I can get. 165 of these. And I'll keep doing them as long as you guys keep showing up. I appreciate you guys so much. Thank you for giving up your precious commodity of time on this platform so that we can hopefully share with others, help others. The things I learned from you guys, I absolutely adore. So until next week, please take care of yourself. Go out and live life full on with the ups and downs, and know that we're here. Your tribe is for you here. We got your back. I adore you all. Oh, and love you, Mom.
Good night,
Thank
all.
you, everyone. Have a great night. Thanks, CJ. Bye, guys.
Thank you. Thanks for
Bless
your
you.
wisdom.